everyone. Yeah, I think you have to flip your mics up. Okay, cool. Everyone's here.
Hello.
Nice. Okay, hi.
Check 1, 2.
I'm Luisa. Thanks so much for coming to Techno Organic. This is just going to be a really casual conversation about our experiences in the Los Angeles renegade rave scene. And we have here today, wait, I want to properly introduce everyone. One sec. We have Dem Passwords. Sebastian Demian is a Southern California-based contemporary art gallery founder, and he has produced 31 exhibitions and many first-time solo showings by artists such as Lee Scratch Perry, Deborah Natsios, and Rachel Lord, and he's produced over 100 events in a DIY mode. And he's been one of my collaborators for DesiredFX for about 4 years now. Yeah. And then we have Khaleo. Weeping Willowtree is a DJ and conjurer from the high desert of Palmdale. Since 2020, she's been opening portals on the dance floor, summoning chaos, catharsis, and pure energy through deconstructed club, hard techno, and sound collage. Her sets unravel like rituals, unpredictable, immersive, and charged with psychic force. Based in LA, she's become known for using her psionic to deconstruct the club. She's a resident at Particle FM, and she shared lineups with boundary pushers such as LaShot, Traxman, and Damon, and she continues to forge a sound that is immediately identifiable. And she's also my favorite DJ, well, one of my favorite DJs in LA. Because my other favorite DJ is Ava, and I'm so happy to be sharing this time with them right now. So then we have Samuel Lamontagne, and I have this. Samuel Lamontagne is a writer and assistant professor in the departments of music and Black study at UC Riverside. His research traces the histories of hip-hop and Black music, exploring how they generate critical knowledges and connect to broader Pan-African imaginaries. He is the co-director of In the Hour of Chaos 2024, a film that documents the class Chuck D of Public Enemy taught at UCLA that he helped organize. He's also working on a book on the visual history of the Pan-African People's Orchestra with Daryl Oluke. Lamontagne's work has been featured in Los Angeles Times, NPR's The World, and international outlets such as RFI and EFE. Beyond his scholarship, he collaborates with community-based organizations including Dub Lab Radio, Chaos Network, and the Pan-African People's Orchestra. Thank you, Samuel, for being here. Advent Groove, aka Sounds Advent, is a club kid, DJ, and party organizer. Focusing on all things queer and unique, Advent creates a safe space for individuality through their art and parties. Heavily influenced by the 90s Latinx house parties in Los Angeles and the self-expression of the New York club kids, Advent wants others to feel a sense of belonging without having to conform to social norms. And I think I met you because I was like, wow, this person has the best looks at every DesiredFX party. Thank you. Then we have Ava Blank. Let me find the write-up. Ava Blank is a music producer, community organizer, and DJ who focuses on the local young queer community and making use of underutilized space in Los Angeles. And so much more. Here's so much more. Yes. Okay, so I guess we can start. Let me see if I get this back on. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of start by saying, has anyone here ever been to like a free outdoor party in LA? Oh, a lot of people. Okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to open the floor. Do you feel like this happened more after COVID, or did you sense a resurgence in this culture?
Yeah, I think the Dead City Punks showed a way to get wild in public spaces, and that inspired a whole generation of I guess multiple generations now of folks getting sound systems together and wanting to make a party happen. So I think it accelerated it, but I was thinking back to not just last year's free parties, but the first one I went to in Southern California, which I remember now is in 2004. I have a screen grab of the website. It was called Cyberstock, and it was in Malibu on Coral Canyon. And it was mostly like synth dudes, and there was a crew back then called Fateless Flows with this artist, Phalo Cyanide. And these dudes were getting wild in Malibu all the way up the hill. And it was amazing. That spot's long since been a bust, and those folks are mostly gone from producing shows. But then many years later, like 2017, 2018, there were Junglist Jams, Dire Times, with Concrete Jungle with the Sea, was making magic happen on Sundays, usually at the Snake Pit, which is an old spot along the LA River that is now a bust also. But yeah, I think to what you were saying, after the health crisis of 2020, folks trying to find a way to work outdoors accelerated this, and I think it peaked arguably last year. And these photos here, you could just skip through some of them if you want to real quick. I went back through my camera roll from last year, and I counted 31 free parties that I went to at all different locations here, and Pico Rivera, Long Beach, and some folks here in this room you'll see here. These photos are just so I can remember where we were, not really trying to take good photos, but occasionally it does happen. Some of these parties were where Louisa, Ava, Cleo, and I were jamming out. In the IE, among other locations, and national forest spots is kind of what we gravitated to with DesiredFX dem passwords. Yeah, go ahead, play it, just so folks can get a sense for some of the music. We'll be vague about the locations, but it's all, along the LA River here, and this spot, just a heads up, the gates open again. But you can just scroll through them real quick. This is just to remember. Oh, yeah, you got it?
That party, or the video that just played, that was a Stelium. It's a series of parties thrown by Patty and another. Sorry, I don't want to discredit who the other person is, but I can't think of it right now. What I like about these parties is that they could be very catered towards what whoever's throwing it. You're gonna those parties are a vessel for the person who's throwing it. You're gonna see what their perspective of partying, their perspective of raving, of how the music is. Every party's different. Yeah, that party was cool because it was. I know Patty is Latinx. Yeah, it was a really cool party. Yeah.
Go back to a couple of those vids. You could see we have vid from one of Ava's parties. That's it's cool when the dogs show up, but go back a few if you can. Yeah, go back. Because sometimes, there wasn't a lot of busts last year. Keep going back. There was one where you'll see a helicopter light. That one, there was one party I went to in Virginia. I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia, and I was visiting my family there and just happened to find this one down along the James River by a train yard where we used to paint. And this kind of speaks to my motivation for getting involved. I'm coming from graffiti, and for me, it scratches that same itch, right? You scope out a spot, you get together with your buddies, you make a plan, execute the plan, you get in, you get out, hopefully you don't bother anyone, and then you don't have much of anything to show for it. And then there's crews, and then sometimes crews are beefing, it's all the same shit, and Just a great way to have fun in that same style. And then super colorful characters like those folks will show up. Go to that one, scroll up with the spotlight there, all the way on the right. There you go. This one might be interesting. This spot was, unfortunately, this was a bust, but we made some magic happen at the gate that night by a miracle, and but unfortunately the police were all over it. But it's cool when the helicopter comes because it turns it up. It's like a light show for a little bit, and sometimes they come take a look and leave. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's impractical for them to drive all the way up to the spot and stop it. But Ava, please.
You know, so there's some funny things about that spot. Well, talking about the police coming up and like shutting it down. Obviously, you know, it's in a place. There's no permits. You know, there's a funny thing that I like to tell this story, but like the DesiredFX crew had one going in Topanga Canyon or something like that, and this guy came up and he's like, "What's going on?" And they said, "Fourth of July celebration. We're a Christian youth group," and he said, "Don't burn anything down," and walked away. I love that story. Like that, I tell everybody that one, and also that place that we showed actually was on fire earlier today. So that's kind of a bring down, but interesting to note.
Yeah, that's what Sebastian would always tell us, because he helped us with our first parties, because I didn't know what I was doing really at all. I just like found PAs and like rented a generator from Home Depot, and then Sebastian started helping us. We met at Snake Pit one night. I think, Cleo, you were DJing that night. Yeah, many years ago. But yeah, you brought your sound system and your expertise, and then yeah, advice such as if a cop comes, just say we're a Christian youth group. Yeah, yeah. And it worked. That one time a cop came and was like, "Yeah, what is this?" Yeah, and we said, "We're celebrating 4th of July, officer." He said, "All right, don't burn the mountain down."
Yeah. I just want to speak to the question that you asked, Louisa, on if we feel like, renegade parties have gotten more popular since COVID. I first started going out when I turned 18 in 2016. I was immediately homeless, like as soon as I turned 18, because my mom kicked me out because I was queer. So I like started going out as a form of like finding community, but also like not really having anywhere else to go. But around this time, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, I don't know if any of folks in this room were around, but the scene was very different. It was a lot more focused on like indie shows, house shows. There was a place called the Rec Center that I would frequent, The Smell, just kind of like rock and roll vibes, which like honestly, I feel like, being so young and just like really wanting community, I was just desperate to go find something. But now looking back, I'm like, yo, that shit was whack as fuck, bro. Like, it was mad just like white people, bands, yelling, smelly kids, underage drinking, like white people talking about bullshit. I would be on the west side with all my white friends, like in Palms. Do y'all know about Palms? Do y'all know about, there was like this record shop on the west side that used to throw parties. That shit was, that shit was whack. But it's interesting because the Rec Center, for example, it shows you like where things were going. Because the Rec Center was this venue that was in, where part of town is that? I don't know. Kind of downtown south, downtown where like the factories and shit is. There's like a Coca-Cola building. Anyways, Rec Center, right? There would, like at the back, there was like a wall and there was a door. And that door led to another venue called Vertex, which was at that point the premier rave venue for anyone that was going. And it's so funny, I never really even got to go to Vertex. I didn't even know what time it was around that time. You feel me? I was going to the white people punk shows and being like, this is it, It wasn't until 2020 actually when I started DJing that I started to be like, actually 2020 New Year's was my first time at Vertex. And at a rave, not my first time at a rave, but at Vertex, and starting to go to those kind of events and starting to be like, oh shit, this is different. Like nobody's pulled out an acoustic guitar.
Yeah, Vertex was my first experience raving as well. It was super formative for me.
That wasn't my first experience raving. My first experience raving was at Chewing Foil. I don't know if y'all remember that spot. That was a crazy spot as well. A lot of these places are gone now. And I feel like that's where the renegade shit starts to come in, because we're starting to lose our spaces. We're starting to feel, we're starting to be made to feel like we don't have any spaces. So what do? We go out and make our own. And I think it's really important. I think it's really important to be intentional about what you're partying, what you're going out to go do, who's gonna be there, who can come,
I think to talk about, you bring up the main reason why, for me, the Renegades make sense is the venues disappear, and the venues that don't disappear suck, and I don't want to be there. Like, I don't want to go to Sound Nightclub ever, ever. I don't. And you want to, if you're into electronic music, you hopefully have looked into the history and how it started, which is these free parties. And it started because you play this song and it's like, everybody thinks it's horrendous and nobody wants to hear your music, And so you go and you do it outside, and that's why it all started, and that's like how these things really came to be. I mean, outside of like the U.S. The U.S. started electronic music, right? Or like at least as we know it with house music in Chicago and New York and the discos but once it went over to the U.S. to the U.K., that's where rave really took over, because there was the drugs. The drugs are a huge part of it, and that's why things took off the way they did with the acid house craze in the UK during, it was like 1988 to like the early 90s, and there was a big ecstasy boom, and everyone was like all lovey-dovey with each other and stuff, but they couldn't play their music in a club. And if they were, it was off to a side room at the house thing, and we had a similar thing here where like you can't go to a place because it gets shut down, I did an electronic show at the Smell, and like it wasn't the place for it. The sound wasn't good for it, and the crowd wasn't. They didn't get it, and anyone that had shown up was people that I knew, or like somebody from the internet that like showed up for it. No, it was a great time, but the Renegade thing, it's hard to find the space, even still, for dance music in Los Angeles. It's all these after hours warehouses, which are super sketchy, and like I don't really want to be there either. Yeah.
So, can I say something real quick? Yes, I'm talk about the origins a little bit, just to follow up what you were saying, Ava. So yeah, I thought what you said about the origins of electronic dance music being in the U.S. is important to contextualize. Especially contextualize it further within Black culture, really, because there's no electronic dance music without Black communities, right? If we talk about house music, Chicago Black communities. If we talk about Detroit techno, Black music, Black communities, New York garage, Black communities. And when you think about the history of electronic dance music, it's really a history of circulation, right? And circulation is really hard to pinpoint origin, but where I like to always start is with Black communities, because that's where the sound comes from, and then the music travels to Europe, and the disconnection happens, right? And so the rave movement in the UK, what happened is that it's white British DJs who were actually in Ibiza, and they heard house music for the first time in 1987. And so when they got back to London, they were like, let's do house parties with house music. And So those DJs were Paul Oakenfold, who did a party called Spectrum, Nikki Holloway, who did a party called Trip, and Danny Rampling, who did a party called Shoom. And those three parties are like really the origins of the rave movement, because London kids that went to those house music parties in London, they didn't say I'm going to the rave, but they were saying like, oh, this weekend I'm going raving. And so that term stayed, and that became later like the origin of the term for like rave culture. So yeah, they were playing house music from Chicago. They were doing a lot of MDMA, and they were flying out the DJs from Chicago, like DJ Pierre, Marshall Jefferson from Chicago. They were like huge stars in Chicago, but like almost unknown in huge stars in London, but almost unknown in their own city. And so the next phase is that, so those parties, those three parties, which were like, at first like 500 people, within 6 months it was like 3,000 people. So house became really popular very fast in London. And the next phase was that because it was becoming so popular, they had to expand outside of London. And that's when they started doing parties in abandoned warehouses and farmers' fields. So those parties went from small underground venues in London to like massive unlicensed events outside. And so that's when then that becomes called rave culture, and that becomes so like 10,000, 25,000 people. And then rave culture gets exported to the rest of Europe, like France, and then exported back to the US, but it gets exported back as rave culture. So it's not associated with black culture anymore at this point. It's rave culture, and it's associated with white working class British identity. And so you lose the connection with blackness at this point. But the origins of all we're talking about is really black culture. You know, even the like countercultural dimension of the rave, to me, is connected to like black music and the link between black music and black freedom culture, you know? So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Well, two things. I definitely understand that, and I feel that because it's like when my first image of raving was like Thunderdome, and like it was a bunch of footage of like white people. A lot of them were like on ecstasy and all that stuff. And I liked the music. It was cool music, killer. But I always felt a little bit disconnected from it, because it always felt like, damn, like they could do that. But then when we're over here, like people get arrested for having weed, you know? So when you also said too, when we do our parties, it's like, oh, when we're playing something and people don't like it, it's like, fuck it, like I'm gonna do my own thing, you know? And also it's also more than just like, it's more than just, oh, there's not enough warehouses. It's like there's warehouses, but some of them are not accessible and they're really expensive, which pushes us to be more like, all right, like I love what I do, this like brings me passion, so I'm gonna do it, you know? Which for me, I was inspired by a lot of different crews in Los Angeles underground. I began to rave when like the pandemic started. Before that, I was always familiar, but I was just too young, you know? And yeah, like I remember when I did my first party with a group of friends, and it was hard because everything costs money, you know, like everything costs money. And not that money is the point, but we have to value ourselves, you know? We can't always be, we can always be like left in the dirt. If we have a passion and we want to do something and people don't, you know, give us the opportunity to do it, then fuck it, you're gonna do it yourself in under a fucking sewer where there's like rats and shit, you know, like, and yeah, like you're gonna drive your car up on some place that you're not supposed to go to, and you're gonna be like, fuck it, like let's just do it, you know, because you're not gonna stop, you know.
Two things. I wanna piggyback off what you were saying about like Thunderdome and like seeing like white people, you know, doing the rave shit. I'm gonna be straight up. The first time I ever heard of a rave, the word rave, it was from the Mexicans. Shout out to the Mexicans, bro. I was raised around, I'm black, you know, my family's black. My sister, though, we have different dads. Her dad is Mexican. I was raised with a lot of Mexicans. And yeah, my grandma was babysitting some random girl, I don't even know, but she was Mexican, and she was like, yeah, I'm going to a rave tonight. Can you watch my daughter? Because I'm going to the rave tonight. And she was wearing her little rave outfits, and I was like, what is a rave? Like, what the hell is this? I was like 7 years old. You feel me? Shout out to Mexicans. That's the first thing I was going to say. Second thing I was going to say was, Louisa, before I knew Louisa, you threw like a birthday party, carnival birthday party at that warehouse. Y'all don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about right now. But there's this warehouse in the warehouse district. That was the spot. And that shit really makes me sad to think about, because that was the on my 18th birthday, I went to a show in that warehouse. I lived in Palmdale at the time. I went all the way from Palmdale to LA to link up with my LA friends, and they took me to my first indie show, and it was at that warehouse. And it was huge warehouse, multiple different rooms, multiple indie bands, So that was the first time I heard ska in person. I was like, the fuck is ska? You feel me? And I was just introduced to a world that I'd never experienced before. And I'm just bringing that up because now that place is gone too. As a matter of fact, the homies threw, the last time I heard of a function being thrown there, it was Exodus, one of the Exodus parties. It was in the warehouse. And the security guards that were working the event, that were supposed to be protecting niggas inside, stopped letting people inside, and then they pepper sprayed everybody inside of the warehouse. And the show has never been thrown in there ever again. And it's fucked up because that was the spot. We used to call it the Minty Warehouse because I don't know if you guys know Minty Boy. He's like a promoter. He books like a bunch of people now. Controversial, I won't say how I feel about him, but at the time, back in 2017, 2016, 2018, nigga, he was throwing all of the indie shows, bro. He was on top of all that shit. Not a flaw came from that. Like, I'm just trying to tell y'all, like, yes, the shit has changed a lot. Yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that, but yeah. Shout out to Mexican.
You brought up an interesting thing. That, first of all, those two parties at the warehouse were wild. Those were out there. I remember those. I like caught an Uber at like fucking, I don't even know how late it was, but we have a photo of the mannequin head. Oh, I wish I sent it here.
Yeah, it's not mine.
Oh, but it was. It was super fried after that whole thing. We had this mannequin head with a wig on it, and it was just fried. But that place is really special. You brought up something that I thought was really cool, and it's like everything costs money, and these warehouses cost money. They cost so much. Yeah. Even the free parties cost a lot of money to do. And they also cost money, but they cost physical. You're putting in so much physical work into this. And, like, you're lugging a sound system. You're renting a U-Haul. You're doing all this stuff. You're spending however much time beforehand tuning your system, doing this, putting in all this thing about what DJs, in what order, in what thing, where are we doing it, what's the spot, blah, blah, all this stuff. And it happens, and it goes away into the world, and people come, and they have a great time, and then you walk out of there and you're like, okay. Some people are like, I did one with a friend one time and he said, I can't wait till we never have to do that again. And I was like, when are we doing that again? You know? So it's like there's all these things, and it's kind of it also like you brought up the graffiti thing where it's like you do all this work and then for nothing much to show for it at the end.
Yeah. And people forget, like
Mhm.
a week later, you can make magic happen, and people forget a week later. Like, it's not really about, maybe it's more just a personal thing. But I think with the free party, like, the secret ingredient is crime. You know what I mean? Like, that's an important thing in the mix. And to what you were saying about DIY spaces and Mexicans, right? Like going back to the backyard, ditch parties and all that, like the party crew culture from the IE and all that. Like there's one promoter, one organizer in our community who comes from that, Inner World Productions, and they're super cool because they're in the mix with young folks, but they were part of the party crews with the hats, vixens and foreplay and all that, and they're still getting it cracking and inviting young people too. And I feel like there's a major disconnection between whatever happened with the ditch parties, backyard, sound systems, nitrous tanks, and what's happening here. And also with sound system, there's not a lot of mentorship, right? Like there's not OGs who are explaining, kicking down the info or giving gear away. All these crews are having to figure it out from scratch. So it's still like in an infancy. And all these photos from that photo set, like the sound system ranges from a couple powered tops on the DJ table all the way up to 8 subs. Like this was Techno Racer, right? Like this dude used to do parties, and he still does. Well, play that video there on the train tracks, because this is cool. This I thought was a terrible location because it's like right next to these active tracks, and it's fucking dangerous, And the track workers, of course, came through, but they gave a thumbs up and sign of solidarity with the party, which is rare, because they could just as soon, call the cops and get them on your ass. And this also partying. Some of these places are so toxic. People are kicking up dust. You got to think about the tire dust, all of the generator fumes. Some people are doing parties in little chambers where you can't breathe, and there has to be an acknowledgement of like people's health and safety, right? Like a lot of that is ignored. Folks just want to get together and get high and fucking listen to loud music, but shit happens. And Cleo and I had the unfortunate circumstance of violence happening at the party, and then everyone running away, and me and a few of the harm reduction homies, they're dealing with the sheriffs and dealing with the airlifted victim, and they survived and all that, but like it was absolutely traumatizing. That was last year too, so that's one of the photos in the mix there that like it's the only photo I took from the party, and it was when the sheriffs and the ambulance were there, and I'm not a religious guy, but I was praying. I was like, please, Jesus, don't die, and that kind of changed things for me, where I'm like, fuck, it always feels a fraction of an inch away from a fucking disaster, and then it happens. And we didn't even have anything to do with that party. You were playing, but I still don't know who the organizers were. They ran away, and it was up to us, But thank God for Elith.
Shout out to Elith.
Yeah, you brought some
part of the harm reduction homies. So
harm
this is
reduction.
Peaches also, because bringing it back to printed matter, right? Like, what does that have to do with the art book fair? Like, there are these zines and little kits. Like this is Guide to Nose Drugs. This is Guide to Methamphetamine. And all of these things are at the table. You can get test strips. You can get hormones. You can get anything. The work they're doing is unbelievable. And they really keep people safe and spraying into action when people's lives are on the line. And then sometimes we print little flyers. This one happens to have the map, but usually you want to keep it low key. And also this one, this is half the fun for me, is like hire Ron Ricci to make a flyer or something. And then last little show and tell thing I'll say is this is the one from the DesiredFX party we did last year, July 5th in Lytle Creek zone. And I hired this French free party guy, just talking on Google Translate over DMs, and we got it done.
Yeah, so the original is what Sebastian was just holding up, and then we scanned it and made it a handout flyer at the library with the lineup on the back. But yeah, I think Samuel, you have some things to show, right?
Yeah, actually, again, following up on what you were saying, like talking about LA electronic dance music history, like LA is, like a lot of time talking about electronic dance music history, a lot of the focus is on Chicago, Detroit, New York, and LA doesn't get a lot of love, but actually LA was like right there with Chicago, right there with Detroit. So like the ditch parties in East LA is really important. But before that, there was a crew, DJ crew, mobile DJ crew in South Central called Uncle Jam's Army. Anybody's heard of Uncle Jam's Army? No? So, yeah. So Uncle Jam's Army, it's a DJ crew created in like the late 70s in South Central by Roger Clinton. And then it was a big crew, so it was like, at some point it was like 20 DJs part of the crew. And some of the DJs that were part of it is like Egyptian Lover, The Arabian Prince, Chris the Glove Taylor, so like really important DJs for LA culture. Can you play the video, Luisa, of Uncle Jim's Army? So yeah, that's like 1983, so that's 6 years before there was any rave happening in London, you know, and it's LA, you know. And again, like all black DJ crew, and they were doing a lot of small events all across South Central, but like this event, they're like, that's the most known event that they did, so in 1983. That was at the sports arena, so that was an arena downtown. That's a building that doesn't exist anymore. But, so it was like 10,000 people right there. And same, like, you know, like the lineup was all DJs. You saw the sound system too. And they were playing like live drum machines. You know, that's like never heard before. So also really early, like I said, like same time as Chicago, same time as Detroit, but like on a bigger scale. And the other thing, talking about Renegade, I think in this context is important also because talking about the mid-'80s in LA, you know, it's the height of the war on drugs, you know. And the war on drugs is not an actual war on drugs. The war on drugs was a moral panic campaign to justify the criminalization of black communities of South Central, right? And to like really hyper-criminalize black kids, militarize South Central. And so while that's happening in South Central, you have Uncle Jim's Army that's doing that, you know? So that speaks about, I think, the power of like black music and, you know, connection to black freedom culture. And that's something that then we're gonna see in the rave culture in Europe, like 6, 7 years later, but they're already doing it in LA, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, I also want to speak on, cause like I brought up like Mexican folks, you know, and I want to speak on the fact that it's just like you will keep your eye on the way that like white folks will try to like smudge over the history of rave shit and kind of become the face of the shit. But when it's like, you know, we did it. Like black people, you know, we created this shit. We the ones that started this shit. And, you know, Latino folks, you know, as far as like the hard house shit and like out here, you know, like that's all our history. And just keep an eye on the fact that like, you know, as things get bigger, as capitalism starts to put her fingertips all over things, like, you know, white folks start to become like who people like start to think is, oh, raves are for white people. Electronic music is for white people, and it starts to like form this disconnect with like black people. Like I'll speak in terms of my own family. Like that's like what I do to them is just some white people shit, you know. Me DJing electronic music, that's just some white people shit, and I try to explain to them like we are the ones who started this shit. Period. It's our history. You feel me? But you know, that does have an effect. Yeah, on alienating, you know, these communities. But it's all ours. And I'll also speak to like modern day, like or like not very modern, but like less modern day, like pioneering that LA does with the electronic music. I'm a deconstructed club DJ. That's my music. That's where I am. And electronic music, I spin on the more experimental side, and I'm very big on educating folks on like how LA is a part of the deconstructed club history. I feel like New York and Berlin and even London have kind of like, that's where everyone is looking for Deconstructed Club, but we gotta remember Mustache Mondays, we gotta remember I8I, you gotta remember that Kalela got her start out here with Zungu Zungu. Like, shit was going down, shit has been going down out here and is still continuing to go down, even though currently the experimental scene in LA is kind of like on some other shit. You know, we're part of the history.
We have 15 minutes left, yeah. Well, yeah, what you're saying, Cleo, yeah. I'll wait for her.
Oh, yeah. Yo, shout out to Jamaican folks, bruh. I just had some jerk chicken fries, my nigga. There is a truck outside. Get you a plate, bro. Get you a plate.
Yes, you guys, this history is so like important, and I'm glad that you guys are bringing it up for all of us to learn about it too. That's earlier I was saying when I first found out about, when I first found out about raving, it was like Thunderdome, all of that, and I felt such a disconnection because it was just a bunch of white people on drugs, but I loved the music. And then later on, I found out about Hard House, and I started to see footage of brown people that looked like me and my family and my friends, you know? And I was like, holy shit, this is like, that looks like my dream. And like they have the sound system, it's a bunch of people, and honestly, the drugs weren't even a part of it. When I saw the footage, it stood out way different to me in a good way. Later on, I saw like there's like nitrous, you know. There's always gonna be stuff everywhere, even in concerts and shows, wherever, you know, but that's not the point of what we're doing at all. Black people really pioneered this shit, and me seeing people of color do this stuff is like, it just pushes me to want to do it more, you know? Yeah, I'll remember what I was gonna say after that.
I just want to say, like, and that's why, I mean, I don't, you know, I have respect for all forms of raving shit, even the shit that I don't spin. And that's why I have a lot of respect for y'all in this audience, you and all of y'all, with y'all in y'all hard house and y'all happy hardcore, because y'all, it's all about the revival to y'all. You feel me? It's not about like, oh, we just doing some new shit. It's, you guys are very connected to the past and very about like showing love, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's important because Sebastian just mentioned, like, you'll throw this show and a week later you'll forget it. You feel me? And I feel like y'all are all about being like, do y'all remember this random ass rave that happened in 2002 in San Bernardino, my nigga? You weren't there. Like, what? And I'm just like, y'all are so educated on this shit and show so much. I just have so much respect. I need to tell y'all right now, like, for real, that shit is real as dope. It's dope as fuck.
No, yeah, we don't forget, and the stuff that we do, I mean, I feel like a part of the reason why it stands out to us so much and why we feel so passionate about these parties is because there's no other space where we could really, unfold the way, me personally, without this stuff, I would have not unfolded into the person I am now. And honestly, I'm proud of the person I am now because it's like this stuff showed me that it's okay to be queer and brown, especially coming from, like a past was just a bunch of, America's America, you know. I don't have to elaborate on that, but yeah, that's why we're doing what we're doing. It's sort of a, what's the word? Going against the, fuck.
You got it.
Rebelling, but in a good way, because, yeah.
It is the opposite of paying a ticket to go to a show and standing in line. You could leave and you could come stand for 5 minutes and leave, you know, and that's really luxurious. But really, it's all on the organizers, and the artists are mostly not getting paid. Also, that should be noted that it's rare if they do. I mean, we've paid artists every now and again, or if they're coming from far away. But like, to do these renegade raves, I might flush $1,500 to the creative spirit. And I think about the Dead City Punks, to bring it back to them. Like, they said, we make money to do this. We don't do this to make money. And I think it's, if I can pull that off a couple times a year, I don't give a fuck. Like, just flush the money and pay the artists what we can and just eat shit. But there is also ways with printed materials, right? Bringing it back to printed matter. And Jerry here has like been good about you know, making T-shirts available and shit like that to help finance, to cover some of the costs, even though you're still gonna lose. But it was cool at the party last week. So many of the attendees were wearing, you know, T-shirts from the other party crews, and folks really seem to want to support each other, which is nothing short of a miracle. And we also have to lower the barrier to entry to doing it, even though it's so difficult. Like, if there was a way to get resources out there, like Flapjack's been good about making gear available for cheap, or I'll loan gear for free, generator, whatever, just to try to get it going. Because it's a lot harder. And to what you're saying about DIY spaces, like we used to have all these spots. You can start a band on Wednesday and play a show on Friday, and we don't have anything. So now it's so much more difficult, time-consuming, costly. It's terrible in that sense, but it just shows how far folks are willing to go to honor that creative spirit and keep it going.
Yeah, and also you get to be outside in nature instead of in a sweaty, stinky warehouse. You can be dancing by a stream under the stars with your friends.
No shade to the sweaty stinker warehouse though, my nigga. I went
True,
to a crack-a-lackin' circuit party. I saw a man getting head. I saw niggas do it off the GHB. No shade to the stinky warehouse parties, baby. Does anybody know about Port Detroit? Damn, that's crazy. Okay, Port Detroit is like this circuit gay party that happens every other few weeks. And the girls are there off the G, bitch, having sex. The dark rooms. My homeboy got pulled into the dark room, got some head by somebody. Like, and I saw a man getting head, bro. Have you ever seen a man getting head at a party? Yeah, actually, that's probably not that rare, but I don't know. I was like, yo, because it was like in the middle of the dance floor, and it was like there was so many people. Like Port Detroit is a very popular party, but they still play Deconstructed Club, which kind of confuses me because Deconstructed Club is not really very popular in LA as much as it used to be. But for some reason at these gay circuit parties, they play really experimental, scary, like Deconstructed Club music, but it's like gays, like muscle gays, like bears, like shirts off, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's just so sweaty. There were so many people. There was probably like 500 people to a room. Yeah, the size of this room. Yes. You could not move, right? So that's the way that they were able to like do that. Like, I guess niggas just kneeled down and started giving them head. I was like, damn, like, okay. Yeah, shout out to I love a good warehouse. I love a good warehouse.
I wanted to bring it back to, like, you're talking about sharing the resources. I think it's really important that we do that because every crew individually learns so much on their own, and I think and we all have our own little knowledge and tips about, like, oh, we don't want to run this spot because X, Y, Z. We got to keep things locked down in this certain way. There's this little thing that we do that keeps everything kind of tight-knit and close together, and we distribute our information this way or whatever. And I remember last year when a bunch of newer crews were starting up and they were doing their first things, I was like, I wish we had all this information all kind of pooled together to share it with trusted individuals so that when they want to do it, they can do it and be safe and not risk their gear getting confiscated, them getting on some kind of, like, whatever, their identity being known, like, or just it getting shut down and people having a bad time and any kind of major repercussions. And I still really believe in that, and I believe that as, like, it's corny, but, like, as a community, we need to, like, come together, you know, there's a lot of information that I have up here that I've been trying to write down, and I know there's a lot of information that people have, and I think if we were to share it amongst each other and have, like, a meeting or something, like, I think we could make this go and be really positive or something like that.
Yeah, and to underscore the importance of safety, and that if you're gonna put your ass on the line and get people together in a spot like this, you know, everything's your fault. And if someone gets hurt, it's your fault. And if something happens, you better run to that danger, you know, because, you know, a lot of these folks, they're spun out behind the setup, and, you know, I don't think they're paying attention. But, you know, all that said, this was at a beautiful place called JK's Tunnel, where this anonymous guy, like, etched into the wall, and this isn't really a practical spot for a party, but this one's pretty cool. I think the next slide over you might be able to see more railroad stuff. So this was more love from the More love from the conductors. But yeah, this is also a toxic spot. So you're going to kick up a ton of dust. You know, I don't want to breathe that dust. I wore a mask to go here, and I didn't stay long. Like, people got to think more about this spot right here. This was that same night, just further up the tracks. This is a disaster zone. Do not do a party at this spot. They sealed up both ends. Concrete Jungle used to do this back in the day when it was open. But during the day, and the last time he did it, the police came. They marched down the track shoulder to shoulder and flushed everyone out there. But graffiti dudes were getting it popping right down the tracks. I saw Fate doing something. I saw Norm, rest in peace, MSK, and that was super rad. You know, you do some balloons, you ride your bike there. But this party in this chamber, I know that they worked with the folks who lived there. Like, there's wild campers who live in there, and I guess they struck a deal with them, gave them some cash or whatever. But you can just see how much dust and toxic shit is in the mix there. This place is really dangerous too because it's sealed up from both ends. You have to use a ladder. I think if you keep going, you might, maybe I don't have the ladder. Yeah, here you go. You can see here to the left, there's a ladder. So I would never do this because if something happens inside that chamber and you can't effectively evacuate people fast enough, you got to think about how to get someone out of here if they're sick in an instant. And if you're all the way up a trail in the forest, that's a consideration too, right? Like, you better have a vehicle and be able to get them to a fucking hospital in 20 minutes or whatever. Like, it's not a game. This is active tracks too. Like, this shit is really kind of out of line to be doing, if you ask me. This was a crew that's local to here that doesn't do a lot of parties, but a guy from San Diego came and did this. I think he created a dangerous situation. Thankfully, no one got hurt, but a lot of folks are doing this. And that guy from San Diego, he was charging $30 to go in this toxic fucking chamber. You know, he's doing what I call wristband renegades. Like, that's what these guys from San Diego are doing. They're trying to come up off they're trying to make money doing this, and I think it's vile. You know, just eat shit and keep it moving. Like, that's what this is about.
I want to speak about the importance of safety when it comes to renegade shit. Not to, like, you know, make shit kind of sad in this moment, but yeah, Sebastian did bring up earlier that there was an incident that happened last year where while I was DJing, I think I was like 20 minutes in my DJ set, a really good friend of mine got shot. And it was done by people that nobody knows, nobody was ever able to identify. They sent off fireworks so they could, like, divert the attention from what they were doing. And they shot my friend while I was spinning. And there's been multiple times that while I was spinning, dangerous shit has gone down. And yeah, I do feel very responsible for that shit. And I just bring that up to say that you got to think about that. You got to think about the fact that something fucked up could really happen. Niggas could die, niggas could get hurt. And it could be somebody that you know and that's somebody that you love. So yeah, think about that.
And the legal repercussions. Like, I helped organize a party in the Angeles Forest. I did location and sound. I wasn't even on the flyer. I asked to not be on the flyer, but the National Forest Police, I didn't even know that existed. They came and went all the way up my ass. They ticketed some of the attendees. I eventually paid the tickets for the attendees. I felt bad because I felt responsible even though it wasn't my event. And we were detained for 2 hours, I think. Then all the paperwork came and it said United States of America versus me, you know? And I tried to fight the charges. They weren't significant charges, but I had a pro bono attorney who agreed to take on my case, and he talked to the assistant U.S. attorney, and they said, why is this guy fighting this? If he wants to push the issue, what we'll do is we're going to go into discovery, and we're going to find other shit to charge him with. So tell him to fuck off and pay the fines. So I ended up doing that. That whole show, it wasn't even my show. I probably lost $1,500, you know, just eating shit doing the show. But, you know, that's, who cares, I guess, you know?
We have to wrap it up pretty quick, but I want to open the last couple minutes for Q&A. If anyone has questions, or if anyone of the panel has any last words.
Safety's first. Yeah, it's super important to talk about that stuff. When it comes to underground, it's underground for a reason, and half of the stuff, like the party in general, it's not legal. So when it comes to underground, community is important. We'll sometimes lose touch with that, and we have to really get back into that, because if not, we lose the sacred space that we have. And yeah, it's such a tragedy that like people are being hurt, you know. But this is why we have to sometimes keep our spaces safe. And I mean, the reason I like the stuff that we do is because most of the time it's a space for queer people, for people of color, and that should be kind of gate-kept. I don't want to say gatekeep because, of course, this stuff is open to everyone, you know? But safety's first. When it comes to underground, it's underground because it's DIY. There's no security with the, I mean, you could get security, which is a good option that I've seen people do, but sometimes the security says too, you know, like this stuff is DIY and you have to trust the people that you're working with, which is why community is important, you know. Talk to each other. Don't be scared to talk to people, you know. Learn from each other too. It's okay to talk to each other.
Yeah, and I also say, like, if you see something go down, don't be afraid to intervene, bro. Don't be afraid to, like, try to help and try to do something. Niggas that know me, if you know me, you know I love superheroes. You know I'm a huge superhero fan. And one of the biggest reasons why I love superheroes is because it's all about that. It's all about being like, you know what, I see some bullshit going down. Let me try to figure out how I can help. There's been so many times where I seen some shit go down. There was one time I was DJing, and a bitch pulled out a knife on the promoter. The bitch that organized the party. Somebody pulled a knife out on her, and everyone was just looking like no one's gonna do anything, really? You know, I remember somebody got stabbed a few weeks ago at a Renegade, and bitches were just filming. Nobody's gonna jump in. You know what I'm saying? If you see something, do something, bro. You never know how you can help somebody.
I agree. And that's the most important thing. And it kind of, with the harm reduction materials there, we have this beautiful emphasis on caring for each other that I love. And the people who are really tight in here, you know, we all want each other to be okay at the end of the night. That is it. It's a very intense environment. We did one on New Year's. I saw some people really out of it, and I was like, how can I do my best to help? Yeah, you were there. I
was there.
Yeah.
I was
No, like,
yeah.
yeah.
I was there with a bad bitch. Oh my God.
But it's like, how can we best help people? You know, people who aren't really in the best state to be at this kind of event right now, but they're here anyways. And a good friend of mine, it was another party, and this guy was in a certain mode off of some substances he took. A good friend of mine talked to him and brought him to a hospital and was like, and he was like, we're gonna get you help, and then that guy is better now. You know, like that was a direct improvement on someone's life, and it's like, how can we continue to do that? You know?
Yeah, and go. If you're at a party and something happens, go to the sound system and talk to the people, because those people are gonna be there when the promoter or whoever, they're all gone. It's gonna be the sound system people talking to the sheriffs, and so go seek that. If there's any problem, just run to the setup and ask people there, because we're all there and we're looking out for each other, and we just want to have fun. And also no fires. Like you showed one of the other parties from Lytle Creek after hours from last year. I saw that they had activated a little fire pit, and that's a wild violation. Like, no fires. Stop with the fires in the forest. It's crazy. Only you. Also, there's some, if y'all want to come and look at this stuff up here, like I brought some, this is for like free party stuff from the UK, like DIY sound system story, and then the Spiral Tribe story. Y'all should get these books, like bringing it back to print and matter. These folks are the one who blazed the trail for all this shit, as it relates to, you know, being a traveler, going in a caravan, making a party in a field, and, you know, all that. And then little zines and stuff. There's Powered by Plur is a dude who makes these little mini zines, and we've been lucky enough for him to make some zines of our parties with little fold-outs. And so there's some cool printed matter.
Yeah, feel
the
free to
parties.
come up and check out, grab a sticker, business card. We have our flyer for our next free party here if you want to take one, and it's also up on the screen. The artist just finished drawing it. It's May 23rd, and yeah, you'll have to ask us for the location closer to the date.
Don't ask me, I will not send it.
Yeah, don't bother the DJs. Thank you so much, everyone.